And we would take cars from Jimbo's auto body shop and ones that Jimbo would toss behind his garage, and we would bring them to the back side of our property with 40 acres in the middle of nowhere. And my parents never knew it, but we had 3 or 4 running cars, my brothers and a couple of friends of mine, and we were 12, 13 years old. We had old Corollas, and that's how I got myself like a GT. We were doing timed rally runs when we were I was 13 years old.
Oh, that rules.
My parents, there was a ridge that separated my house.
It's like, go play, kids. You're like, all right.
Yeah.
And so we would get these cars running, and like barely, and like their suspensions are all twisted. They're like, they would run sideways.
Yeah.
But
it's a loose definition of running when you're 13.
You get them running. That's how we all learned how to drive, was back there on that rally track. And the only reason my parents found out about it is because every once, like, eventually we couldn't explain why is Tim's arm broken.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. This week's episodes are brought to you by Vuori. I love Vuori, and it's spelled V-U-O-R-I. It's not a very radio-friendly brand to advertise, is it? Because it sounds different than it is. But Vuori is great. I'm literally wearing their t-shirt right now. I love their shirts. I threw out all of my other non-Vuori t-shirts, and now I only wear Vuori t-shirts. Their clothes are designed to work out in, but they don't look or feel like it. They're so comfortable, you want to wear them all the time. It's like whatever you're wearing now, it is more comfortable. It's super versatile. It can be used for any activity: running, training, swimming, yoga, but great for lounging or weekend errands or podcasting. If you've ever seen the regular solid t-shirts that I'm wearing, black, gray, blue, that's Vuori. And other than them being light, incredibly comfortable, really breathable, my favorite thing about Vuori shirts, they don't show sweat. When it gets hot out, I'm out in the desert, I'm working, get a little sweaty. It happens. But the Vuori shirts really hide that sweat. You don't see it on camera. It is great. They look great in everyday life, in the gym or out. I wear them to work out, but I also wear them to live my life. I've got like 15 of these things. The Strato t-shirts, those are my favorites. But they've also got the men's core shorts, super comfortable lined athletic shorts, one short for every sport, and the performance jogger. The pants, perfect lounge or working jogger, also available as a short. I like to wear those when I travel. Those are my flying pants. I'm more of a jeans guy, and Vuori hasn't done jeans yet. But when I fly and I'm on the airplane a lot, man, the Sunday performance jogger is what's up. Vuori is an investment in your happiness. And now for our listeners, they're offering 20% off your first purchase. Get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at Vuori, VUORI.com/TST. That's VUORI.com/TST. You'll receive 20% off your first purchase and also enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. So go to VUORI.com/TST and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing. Also, don't forget the Patreon, patreon.com/the Smoking Tire Podcast. A whole bunch of tiers for every budget. Starting at just $3 gets you access to our live stream, ask questions for the crew show, ask questions for our guests on that live stream. For a little bit more, you get ad-free listening experience for the podcast, and you can get the shows the day they are recorded rather than having to wait till Tuesday, Thursday. The top tier, the Pro Driver tier, gets you an extra everything on the ones below, plus an extra show every week. Cut that. The Pro Driver tier, the top podcasting tier, gets you a 9th podcast each month just for you guys. And now we've got the new Championship tier, which extends ad-free watching to our car review main channel. That's no YouTube ads and no host mention ads. The Championship tier is now live at our Patreon, and we will take questions from the Patreon in the second half of this show. All right, folks, on today's episode of the program, I will be talking to my boss. That's right, I have a boss. How about that? Some of you might know that I work for Road&Track magazine, and the editor of Road&Track magazine is with us from his fucking cabin in the woods where he's planning to blow up a school. He was formerly the editor-in-chief at The Drive. He has been a massive supporter of my writing career, and he's one of my favorite bosses I've ever had. He's a great road trip companion on the Road&Track experiences that we do 4 times a year. My guy is calling in and give us a fade in, Zach. There he is.
Whoa.
Right?
Look at that. Yeah, that's I feel what an introduction.
That is an introduction. That's how we do
introduction. I don't think of myself as your boss.
I know.
Honestly,
and let's keep it that way.
It's just such an intimidating. I've been trying to get on your show for years. It's a very intimidating.
Maybe I'm your boss.
Little man, you own me right now.
No, man. When you were at The Drive and I was working for you freelance, I mean, you were an excellent boss then. And no, I don't really think of you as my boss either, because it's not often that you have to tell me what to do.
No.
But you usually let me do whatever the fuck I want, which is great.
That's the whole reason I hired you. I sort of feel like that's a good setup at Road&Track is a bunch of guys and gals, men and women. I would love to have more women than we have. It's honestly a bit of a challenge. And they do, like, they have great ideas and they execute them, and it's fun. And you don't have to push people around too much.
Well, I really like I like everybody that I get to work with at Road&Track when we hang out on Performance Car of the Year, which is in this month's issue. It's got Miles Davis on the cover. The cover wouldn't necessarily lead you to believe that this is the Performance Car of the Year issue, but it's Miles Davis leaning on a Mura, and that's pretty cool too.
Yeah. The winner of this year's PCOTY
is a 1967 Mura with a guy smoking a fucking doobie on the leaning on the fender.
That would be the slowest car in that whole comparison.
No, it wouldn't. The WRX would still be slower.
Definitely, definitely.
It was slow.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
The cover is Miles Davis. It's the magazine's changed quite a bit. It's thematic. This is the music issue, and it aligned with the Performance Car of the Year package.
Was that weird? Was it like, because I like when it was you or whoever else the magazine decided that, okay, we're now gonna, instead of doing 12, sister versions of Car and Driver, this is now going to be more of a literary type experience with more storytelling, less car reviews, and it's going to be half as often but twice as good, and each issue will be themed. Was it then kind of like, well, what happens to Performance Car of the Year? What do we do with that?
That's a tough one. Like, do you make one issue, devote the entire issue to Performance Car of the Year? It was something we toyed with.
If your other magazines, you do.
Yeah.
I think all the other major car magazines would do that.
Yeah.
It would be on the cover. It wouldn't necessarily be the whole magazine, but it would certainly be the story that they're using to sell the magazine, not a picture of Miles Davis.
I got to say, it was a tough call. I mean, did I want to put the C8 on the cover? Did I want to put the C8 Z06 on the cover? Yeah. But I also really wanted to do a music issue, and this was the opportunity I had. I have 6 opportunities with print, 6 opportunities in an entire year, and only 2 of those are sort of the wild card themes, right? We get the music and the one that's coming up that I can't talk about, but
why are only 2 like the wild cards? Because like, it's not like the other ones were like that predictable.
No, I mean, I do a tech issue that we align with CES. It's like these things kind of line up. I've got motorsports that lines up with sort of the heart of the motorsports season in October. What else? I have a vintage issue, a vintage themed issue that
Yeah.
lines up with Pebble,
But
and
it's not like those are going to be every year, or are they? Is this something
I
that's not going to
don't
be every year?
I don't know. Next year I might shake it up a little bit. We've got a little bit of
Well,
latitude.
you did the night one. That was
That
sort of a wild cardy.
That was cool.
that's definitely wild cardy.
Yeah.
We've done a bunch of kind of weird ones. We did Risk,
Yeah, the
Risk
risk one was
issue.
good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Here we
music
did a
works. There's
Heroes
a
issue.
lot of, cars and music go well together, and there are a lot of direct and indirect connections. And I think the stories that are in this magazine are really interesting. I mean, there's the guy who talks about designing stereos, the guy who talks about exhaust notes. There's, stories of rock stars in their cars. There's,
Yeah.
my Killer Mike piece is in here, and I think it came out pretty decent. And so there's, it's you got to avoid the cliches, but I think it's not a totally out of nowhere theme,
No, listen, cars and music grew up together. They're like, it's completely inseparable. There's a couple layers to choosing to do the music issue for me. First of all, I didn't come into the car magazine world from in a traditional way. I was a crime reporter at the Boston Globe for a couple of years, right out of college, and then I ended up at Rolling Stone. And I was at Rolling Stone for like a giant chunk of my young career, my 20s and early 30s. And so I really, it's sort of something that I naturally want to do. And I also think that for me, growing up, car stereos, cars, music, weed, like all these things were like deeply, like emotionally connected for me. And I think for everybody.
You just described my college existence as well, pretty much.
Yeah.
Car stereos, cars, and weed. That's pretty much 8 years of my life.
Oh, also think about like what car folks are interested in besides cars. Like you're a big watch guy, and like really really nice firearms as well. Like that's sort of a common.
Well, functional artistic machinery, right?
Yes.
That all kind of goes together. I guess it is a bit of a miss. We didn't really do in this issue, and maybe there's room for it somewhere else down the road. Is like an etymology. Maybe that's not the right word, but the history of car stereos, I think, would have been a cool piece, and maybe there's room for it, and especially because now we're kind of seeing in a lot of ways like the death of the aftermarket car stereo, and like even the high-end companies like Alpine and Pioneer, it's like people just want like, bro, just give me something I can plug my phone into. Like I just just give me something that mirrors my phone. It's like that kind of art was really the 1980s and 1990s, and then it was just sort of
when I was 17, I had a Celica GT. And I lusted after a Blaupunkt. All I wanted was to get a Blaupunkt. I never had enough money, and I never got it. But it was something that I really, and I knew guys with Alpines, and I was like, God, this sounds so great. And Celica just had a shitty stock stereo. But music and cars. It's just in the U.S. That's how people listen to cars from after World War II. That's how music was broadcast. That was really, once everybody got into cars, rock and roll happened. It's like they're just completely inseparable, and that's what I really wanted to do, and also to avoid the cliches. I mean, we don't have to dive too much into the music issue, although I think it's kind of fascinating. Spinelli and I had a long conversation about this because he and I worked at the Drive together for a while, and most of what we did was sit around and bullshit about music and do impressions of Italian people, Italian Americans.
I can't possibly imagine Spinelli doing that.
But he had a really good idea, a really interesting idea that we didn't end up doing. That once the Model T, the Model A, once cars became a prevalent part of society, touring bands started to become a prevalent part of society, and like all these sort of regional, like these regional musical styles started to take to the road.
Yeah.
And like the concept of an American sound and the American songbook going like from Birmingham to Seattle became a reality. It would take you 5 months, but that band would hit the road for a year.
Yeah.
And people in Seattle are suddenly listening to the sound of Appalachia, and it's kind of blowing their minds.
He touched on it a little bit because Spinelli did a piece on the Melvan, which is the touring van that the Melvins used. It's a great piece in the magazine. But yeah, the invention of the van means we can bring our band, places for sure. There are like there's so many obvious connections between the two things, but like I like the little tidbits, and I've heard it. They talk about the Foo Fighters in this particular issue, but I've heard it also said about Jack White. I've heard it said about Led Zeppelin. I've heard it said about Pearl Jam, that when the album's finally mixed, they go out in the car and they listen to it in the car, not just in the stereo, because that's where the fans are going to be listening to it. It's got to sound good in the car.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I had Butch Vig had agreed to rate the top high-end stereos, production stereos you can get in different cars. John Flansburgh ended up doing it, but Butch's thing early on, I mean, when he started, and Steve Albini as well, those guys were all about going out and listening to mixes in cars.
Yeah. And you got to do it in a shitty car too. You need like a bass line. You can't just go sit in your Bentley with the name, 47 speaker shit.
No, you need to be in a Subaru Forester.
Yeah, paper cones, right? It's got to be no EQ.
Subaru has the single worst audio system I think out there right now.
What did I heard? I heard a car recently that was just trash audio.
Yeah.
What was it? Oh, I can't remember. Oh, it might have been the 86. It might have, which backs you up there.
Maybe like the same supplier.
It was, and the Corolla, the GR, the Marizo, where it's got the Marizo was dog shit because it has no rear speakers. It's just like two speakers in the front. It's like you might as well Velcro a fucking Bluetooth on the dash at that point.
What a wild car that Marizo is, man.
Yeah, we drove. Zach and I drove the one down from that, the Circuit. And that's really the one that you want. It's got a back seat. The rear windows work. It's got the rear wiper. It's got the speakers. And unless you have a stopwatch handy, it's the same experience as the Marizo. The Marizo, if you have 15 minutes to live and you're at a racetrack, you fucking drive the tires off that Marizo and you got a great little session. But on the street, no.
If there's any sort of moisture in the air or on the ground, you are completely blind to the rear. There's nothing you can do about it. It's the
I
weirdest
remember
thing.
them being like, we've eliminated the weight savings of the rear wiper. And then for Performance Car of the Year, we're driving this thing in a downpour, and I'm like, I can't fucking see. Like, this isn't even like, this is like what I wouldn't give for that pound of weight in the back.
We've completely eliminated the visibility of the rear as well.
Because like it's a hatchback, like the wheels just spray their own shit onto the back.
Yeah.
See anything? It's so dumb.
What an amazing car to drive, though. I love that car. Even the absurdity of that particular the Gazoo edition, the Marizo. The absurdity of that was even with the absurdity of having no back seat and little.
Well, you got to respect the commitment, right? For a company that's known for overwhelmingly conservative products, the commitment to the ridiculous. Certainly deserves respect, and they'll find 200 morons to buy that thing. No question. But
two of them are on the Road and Track staff.
Not Marizos.
No, not the Marisa.
Two people. I heard on the call this morning that Aaron was trying to buy a GR Corolla.
He put a deposit down. He's got a dealer out in Ohio who's only gonna upcharge $5 or $6 grand, or 20, and he brought it to the group like, is this something that I should do? I'm like, that may be the number for that car.
Yeah, it might be. But like just the regular car is like awesome. Just get the one with the rear wiper you probably want, because you won't be able to see anything.
Nobody needs that. I was honestly, for PCOTY, I was a little disappointed that we got that one rather than like a step down. I mean, I know that PCOTY is all about putting the nuclear weapons out on the track. Well,
when we told Toyota that we were timing the cars, they're like, well, let's give them the fastest one we've got.
Yeah.
So that tracks for sure.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
I mean, good for them. We'll see what happens now that Toyota's retired.
Right. I was, he retired, and I was like, was the GR Corolla like his mic drop moment? He's like, they've done it. We've sold a hatchback with no backseat wiper or rear speakers. I've now completed my mission. I'm out of here.
He's going out like, listen, they dominated Le Mans for six straight extraordinarily dull years. And they put out the GR Corolla, and that his work here is done.
Yeah. He's a G. I like Akio very much.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
When my wife helped do some of the consumer research for the GR Corolla, which, trust me, I can't tell the whole story, but it drastically improved the product from what their original plan was. They had asked us, it was, let me just tell you this. It was going to be front wheel drive, and it was not going to be stick. Okay. And so they fixed it. And, and so one of the things that I kept saying was, you need to set Akio up as like a Carroll Shelby-like figure in the marketing. It's like, you've got this guy, like the CEO, like he's racing, and he's like the super driver, like whatever their scale is of testers. He's at like the highest level. I was like, you can position this guy as like a straight up legend. Like, do that. Yeah. And they didn't listen, but it's okay. I think
they didn't listen to that part. They listen to the good stuff.
The important parts, yes. All-wheel drive, active diff. That's the important part. I don't care about the
active diff,
rest.
variable torque. All over the place. I mean, that thing is an absolute beast on the track. It's so much fun.
Yes.
It's also relatively expensive. I think it's 50.
The Marizo was like 53 grand. The Circuit at 45 or whatever. That's the one. That's the best $45,000 car around. Let's back it up. Let's talk about Rolling Stone for a minute. There's actually a great in the music issue, a very on-brand Hunter Thompson story about Hunter Thompson hanging out with Ginger Baker and being a general shit show, as Hunter Thompson is known to do.
Hunter was a shit show.
Isn't it weird that he gets, because it doesn't seem like he was a great human, but he really is a legend when it comes to writing.
We should quickly explain, Mike, your relationship with him and your employment, maybe, as it were.
Sure. I mean, the guy who wrote this is Corey Seymour, who was my predecessor at Rolling Stone, and he was also Hunter's assistant. What Jan, the editor-in-chief at Rolling Stone, used to do is throw the young meat at Hunter, and they would like do a couple of years of Hunter time, and that was.
That's the hazing. That's Rolling Stone hazing.
It's like training day.
It's a pretty intense experience. Corey, God bless him, he's a wonderful, wonderful guy. And there's another guy, Tobias Peirce, is the other surviving assistant, and myself. Corey got the hardest edge of Hunter. By the time I got to Hunter, he was pretty tapped out. I did 3-4 reporting trips with him, including this polo trip that Corey was on. I tag teamed a little bit because we overlapped. And he wrote this piece, "Polo is My Life." He knew nothing about polo, and we had to do all the reporting. And we knew Ginger Baker was there, and so I had Corey write up this story.
The
working
story
with
that is in the magazine is basically just this dude Corey trying to get Hunter to the fucking polo field. Basically,
Yes.
there's not much more to the story than
get him to the Greek.
That's it pretty much is to get him to the Greek.
Essentially, the problem with Hunter always is he doesn't do daytime, and most things happen during the day. And so he comes in the aftermath, and he like lights up the night for everyone. And when, he saw a couple of polo matches, but that was really it. So we ended up having to set up, like, he knew Ginger Baker was there. Ginger Baker, the drummer for Cream, also a notorious asshole, and they got along really well, and we finally hooked them up. It's a really cool story. I'm not going to tell the whole thing, but Corey did a really good job, and I did a couple of really horrifying reporting trips with Hunter, and I was just actually talking to Zach earlier about a thing that he used to make us do. I mean, we did a lot of stuff. When Hunter was writing, one of us would have to go out to his farm up in
Colorado,
in Woody Creek, outside of Aspen, and help him wake up, help him get the right chemistry, and then help him to the typewriter. And when he was done with a page, we would fax it back to Rolling Stone to make sure that he didn't burn it first, or didn't catch on fire, or he didn't sell it to Don Johnson, his neighbor, who was inevitably sitting in a corner.
What would happen if he sold it to his neighbor? What then?
His neighbors, I don't know. He would, because Hunter was constantly on the make. He was like, he always had money problems. Jan, who was, Rolling Stone was built by Hunter, and Hunter was built by Rolling Stone. There was a real mutual love there. And Jan Wenner, who founded the magazine, has taken a lot of shit over the years, and from Hunter and from a bunch of other people. He was a really generous guy, and when Hunter ran into lots of financial issues in the 80s, when he was no longer able to produce the way he was in the 70s, especially, in the 90s, Jan bought his farm for him. He bought Al Farm and handed the deed to Hunter and said, "You don't have to worry about this anymore. Now go do some writing." A really menschy thing to do. And, Hunter was always grateful for that. And he was a fucking lunatic and a really horrible person. And, Corey got punched in the face by him multiple times. So I think he hit me twice. Once on the Long Island Expressway while I was driving. No, while Hunter was driving, and I was preparing the chalice with weed, and I don't know what exactly happened, because I was pretty confused by the chemistry at the time as well, and he just took his right hand and smacked me in the side of the head, and I had this big welt on the side of my face for the entire weekend, and he felt like, he never mentioned it. He used to call me the queer bait.
Isn't it crazy that, like,
well, hold on, let me finish. He never mentioned it, but I'm sorry, that's not very PC, but at the time it seemed to make sense. I don't know why. He never mentioned the fact that he had hit me on that occasion, but he did send me this really beautiful pink silk suit that was about my size, and a bunch of cash to get it tailored. And he also sent me first class tickets to Aspen to come visit him.
And you think that was a direct apology for hitting you?
Yes.
Sorry for
I know.
punching you. Here's a suit that you'll never wear.
He had this woman who kept him alive for many years, Deborah Fuller, who lived in one of the buildings on Al Farm. She would show up at his bedside with his morning vitamins before he
at 7 p.m.
It was 3:30. It was Elvis time, we called it. 3:30 p.m. She would show up with vitamins, and he would ingest them, and he would have orange juice and cigarettes and then everything else. But she was the one who, knew how to wake him up when he was comatose. She knew which Mexican amphetamine to use and how to get a pill down his throat when he was unconscious and stuff like that.
It's covered in peanut butter.
That's just fucking crazy.
I will
like,
say
if the
the
guy
Hunter
didn't have talent for putting words on paper, he would just be a piece of shit.
Well, that is the fence between
I
terrible
know.
people and famous terrible
It's
people.
just crazy how that works. You know, like
it's weird. It's weird with him. Like people loved him, and I mean, all these writers. I see these writers. You see it too. Like guys who fall into the Hunter trap. I mean, Bill Murray fell into the Hunter trap when he did the Where the Buffalo Roam. He couldn't stop talking like Hunter for years. He had to like purge it out of his system. So when he did,
and Johnny Depp almost became him too. I mean, he
did.
wasn't far fucking off.
He did become him. I mean, that was like I watched that happen after Hunter died. He shot himself in his kitchen. Juan, who's Hunter's son, who was there with his son when Hunter blew his head off. He was at Al Farm. Juan had me and Corey Seymour and Tobias, the three assistants. We all flew out, and while Anita, Hunter's wife, there's a lot of weird politics here. She was off doing something. She's not a good person. I'm not going to say that more than once, but we went into the basement and Johnny Depp came over. He flew out as well, and the five of us just cleared out some of the more incriminating stuff from Hunter's basement and made a big pile and lit it on fire with kerosene.
I'll tell you what, if there is a basement that I would love to help, I mean, because the idea, your grandparent dies, you don't want to do that clean out of the house, but you might find one or two interesting things. That is a house that I would love to clean up and see what I could find down there.
Yeah, he was a piece of work. I went to Cuba with him to do an interview with Fidel Castro, and Castro never showed up, and Hunter blamed me. And so I'm
sure it was you. It was definitely your fault. It was not nothing to do.
I'm stuck in this hotel room with Hunter, some filmmaker named Michael. I don't remember his last name, and Johnny Depp, and we're just waiting. And the only assurances we ever had, and I was really clear with Hunter about this, the only assurances we really had from Fidel's people was, if you stay at the Nacional, you'll get a phone call, or you won't get a phone call, or the lights will all go out and suddenly Fidel will be in the hallway and you let him in. And that was it. And Hunter's like, so we're gonna go down there for the interview. And I had to like go to the marina to a boat to pick up a bunch of dry goods for him. It was a crazy job. Great driver, I will say.
Really?
Yeah, really good. Really, like, I mean, he's known for that big fat Cadillac.
I mean, I remember he wrote a couple of car and motorcycle reviews that are not, I mean, they're wild, but they're not like as wild as some of the other stuff. I mean, there's a couple, I remember reading a couple like Ducati reviews. He would review Ducatis. And it seemed like he knew how to go fast on a motorcycle, but someone that's that whacked out, it's hard to think of them as a good driver.
He had the thing that all great drivers have. Nobody else in the world will ever say this about Hunter Thompson. Yeah. He had the ability. He had a VW Bug that he had kitted out for winter driving, and that was his winter car. He had the ability. He had car control on those Pitkin County roads in the dead of winter, with like a joint in one hand, a cigarette in the other, a beer in another hand, a Chivas Regal in the third hand, a line of cocaine in the other hand, and
Zach's got the image up there. Hunter Thompson with a Ducati 900 SP for Cycle World magazine in 1995.
The title is "Song of the Sausage Creature." Amazing,
beautiful.
I'm trying to find. Apparently, he reviewed a 996 as well, but I can't find it.
Yeah. That's fucking crazy.
That's pretty full. He was good friends with PJ O'Rourke, and PJ.
Yes.
PJ was a great writer at Car and Driver, and also a great guy. I worked with PJ a lot. He was a really, really, really great guy.
Was he?
who
I
tried.
mean, his political leanings haven't really aged well, but at the time, that was sort of the prevailing kind of wisdom, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Of all those guys, Brock, Yates as well.
yeah. Well, PJ's politics were right wing with compassion, I think. He was PJ was a really, really great guy. I did all the report. He did a book called Eat the Rich about the economics of wealth. And I was a reporter for him for that. And I did a lot of work for him. And he was a lovely gentleman who he came from the William Buckley world of conservatism. And he believed wrongly in trickle down economics, but he also was more libertarian than that. Like he was hard to pin down in a weird way. I thought his best work was always his travel writing, like the writing. I went to Albania with him, and we walked around Tirana together, and he wrote just one of the most amazing travel pieces about the fall of or the after the freeing of Albania. What happened to those people, like how they emerged from the destruction that was wrought in that country. And it was a story it's brilliant and full of compassion, and it's not sort of overwhelmed by his right-wing politics in the least.
The writing is really the writing I've read of PJ's, his books and some of his car reviews that I've read is really, really good. I mean, really good.
The Baja one really sticks.
The
in my mind.
Baja one is great.
Incredible.
That Ferrari 308 review, I mean, is great.
Yeah,
it was so good. His book, Drive Like Crazy, Driving Like Crazy.
That's right. Yeah,
is great. That's all stuff that's like, if you want to write about cars, like you need to read that shit. It's just like some of the takes have not aged so super well.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I stand behind that guy in a big way. I think that if you look at the world today, there are certain voices that I really miss, and one of them is PJ's, and Christopher Hitchens is another, and even like Hunter Thompson, like at his best in the 70s, when he's covering politics in the 70s. You look at like a knockoff like Matt Taibbi now, and you kind of want the real thing rather than this sort of this hideous.
Ironically, I think Hunter's political takes have aged well.
Yes,
I mean, it's ironic that we sort of put him in the same basket as PJ and Brock, because his political takes, for all of his fucking craziness, really have aged very well. I read Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
Is that the actual name of the book? Or am I blanking on it?
That's it. 72. Yeah.
Yeah, I read that and I was like, holy shit, this holds up really well from a political science standpoint, not just from this is very good writing.
What got lost in the hagiography of Hunter Thompson?
Yes, it did.
Like the Las Vegas book and the drugs and the light, that like this sort of image that he got trapped in the same way that like all famous drug addicts get trapped in the image of themselves.
Having Johnny Depp play you in a fucking movie while you're still alive certainly doesn't do anything to diminish that.
It didn't help Johnny either, honestly. Like Johnny never recovered from that.
No, his Pirates of the fucking Caribbean was the same character. All right, now be Hunter Thompson with dreads and a pirate hat. Like that's the whole fucking character.
Imagine Hunter Thompson and Keith Richards having a baby together.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. That was a weird time in my life, coming from being a crime reporter, and I grew up in Maine. I grew up next to an auto body shop. My dad is a lobster fisherman. I worked on lobster boats, and and we would take cars from Jimbo's auto body shop, and ones that Jimbo would toss behind his garage, and we would bring them to the back side of our property with 40 acres in the middle of nowhere. And my parents never knew it, but we had 3 or 4 running cars, my brothers and a couple of friends of mine and I. We were 12, 13 years old. We had old Corollas, and that's how I got myself like a GT.
And they were just fucking off on another part of the property that your parents never like visited.
My older brother is
like a whole circle track back there.
My older brother was a WRC fan. He used to listen to it on the radio. Like he had posters of Ari Vatanen on the wall. He was really into that. So we were doing timed rally runs when we were I was 13 years old.
Oh, that rules.
My parents, there was a ridge that separated my house.
It's like, go play, kids. You're like, all right.
Yeah.
And so we would get these cars running, and like barely, and like their suspensions are all twisted. They're like, they would run sideways.
Yeah.
But
it's a loose definition of running when you're 13.
You would get them running. That's how we all learned how to drive, was back there on that rally track. And the only reason my parents found out about it is because eventually we couldn't explain why's Tim's arm broken. Well, he can't have just fallen out of that same tree. It's like there was so many injuries. We had a couple of I had a YZ80.
It's like there's literally a Ford logo imprinted on your forehead, son.
They go feel the hoods of the car. They're like, this one's warm. Why is the car hood warm?
I was gonna bet that eventually one of them made its way onto the street and you got fucking yoinked for driving.
No, the reason it all ended was we rolled a Ford Escort, and we couldn't get it upright, and we couldn't get the door open, and we actually had to like trudge back. My friend Chris was stuck in the driver's seat.
Oh no!
Trudge back to the house.
Jaws of life. This fucking thing.
My dad just gotten off the boat. We were all up at 3:30 in the morning. We work on the back deck of the boat, and then we go to school. And after school, we play around. And my dad come home from work at like 4, so he had just gotten home from a 12-hour day out on the water, and we had to be like, Chris is stuck in this car upside down on the backside of the property, and he just kind of. I remember him looking at my older brother like, "What the fuck are you talking about?
Like you have to back up that story about 5 or 6 steps for it to make any sense."
He's looking in the driveway to make sure all of the cars that are supposed to be there are there. He's like, hilarious. "What cars?" Yeah, so
that's hilarious. So where did you learn to write about cars, though? Was it from Hunter? Was it from? I mean, was there any crossover of him writing about cars while you were there, or is it?
No.
Were you just after that Rolling Stone gig, you're like, maybe cars is where it's at?
It happened. I mean, my interest in cars started on the back end of my property, and when we were working on boats, we were all Coast Guard certified for captain. In order to do that, you need to get diesel mechanic certification as well. Yeah. And so I went to college. I dropped out of school to work at the Globe, and came back. They gave me a diploma and credits for my work at the Globe. And
dropping out of college to be a reporter is weird. Usually
it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird.
You might become a reporter to like after you have a degree, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to judge, but like
something about it. I really, really, really wanted to chase cops around and write about crime. I don't know what it was. It was listen, that job, I had like 5 police scanners taped to my dashboard. I was going to structure fires. I would go to like, just anything. I had a list of every single police code. Like, what does this code mean? I had this list like taped.
When you're 20, that's probably fun. Actually.
Yeah, and if you're sitting in class, like listening to people talk and taking notes, you're like, well, if I can do this same basic skill set, but with police and fire
and
involved,
while watching a building burn,
let's do that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Those are pretty. It was a pretty amazing experience. You're working with these Metro editors who are just brutal, and they have no patience for you missing deadlines. and they're cool with you doing 20-hour days. Their amphetamines are flying everywhere. Everyone's drinking with cops. It was like kind of old school.
You can't be late if you're on speed.
Yeah, well, you can't be late if you're on the metro, like page 1 metro deadline.
Yeah,
you just can't be. And like, there's a lot of crazy shit going down. Like the Winter Hill gang had been busted apart. Actually, Zach, I know you live in Santa Monica. Jimmy Bulger, was high. He was living out there for
a long
years.
time, right?
15 years. Yeah,
just hanging out, living in an apartment.
This was not long ago that he was arrested, right?
Ago.
I remember his arrest story, like while I lived here.
It was some like, wild.
2011.
Yeah. It was like while we were here.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like somebody bought a guitar from him or something off of Craigslist, and they had an argument about a $20 difference and what the cost of it would be. It's like, after all that, but Jimmy Bulger, Whitey Bulger, I don't know. Maybe we're way off track here, Matt, but let me just say one thing. Whitey Bulger was one of, he did a bunch of time in Alcatraz, before he ran the Irish mob in Boston. And while he was in Alcatraz, he took part in MK Ultra, that CIA mind control program.
Yeah.
And that dude got dosed every single day for 200 consecutive days.
No way.
With government acid, with
that was the good Sid. Was that really good? That's that good
window
blotter.
That's a lot. That's a lot in a row. 200 days.
Yeah. You ever been to Alcatraz?
Yeah.
It's a great, if you're ever in San Francisco, it's a fucking great thing to do with a half a day. Yeah. I can't recommend it enough. And I know people typically do not like going to Alcatraz, but I'll tell you what, by prison standards, seemed kind of nice. I mean,
boy,
got a nice view of the harbor.
Are you allowed to look out at the view though if you're a prisoner?
Yeah, but the cells, there's windows across from the cell blocks. You could, I think it was part of the thing where like they wanted the prisoners to see that life was fucking happening out there across that bay, and you couldn't get there. Kind of nice.
A wild idea. I mean, Rikers Island is exactly the same way. It's very pleasant.
Yeah. And even San Quentin is on a real fucking piece of property on the north side of that bay.
Wow.
It really is. We drove past it doing Route to Vine last year.
And we will again in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah. I'm so
excited.
It's
2 weeks, dude. I'm super stoked for Route to Vine this year. God. The road, we almost got so fucked, dude, with the rainstorms that happened.
Yeah.
There, a sinkhole that would swallow a Super Duty opened up less than a quarter of a mile off our route. Like, we turn off this road, but if we don't turn off it and we went a quarter of a mile further, there's a 20-foot sinkhole that is the entire road. Yes. Wow. Hopefully it's not going to be a problem. Very excited for Route to Vine this year, though. It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be really good.
Fucking Mac booked me a Bentley. Yes.
Oh, nice. That's perfect.
Yes,
that is perfect.
What are you driving? You're driving the SL, right?
Maurizio.
I don't know. I don't know
think
what
they put you in the SL 63, which is a lovely touring car.
Dude, it's like one of my favorite. I loved Hudson Quattrocento.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites. Favorite things. I love these experiences. I love the fact that they make money and they're successful. They sell out. Like that Smoky 600. And they're fun.
We're doing the Smoky Mountains experiences.roadandtrack.com. Route to Vine is sold out. You can't come. Sorry. The Smoky 600 is going to be this summer. I'm making the route in March. It's going to be Nashville, Knoxville, Corvette Museum, NCM track, bourbon tasting, Tail of the Dragon, all that good shit.
We've sold a bunch of seats in that.
I think that one's like halfway sold out now, actually,
it's
so far.
Halfway sold out, and we've done very little lifting to make it happen. We've already sold a bunch of Hudson Quattrocento. And then there's a couple of European ones.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, I'm stoked. There's a guy coming, the guy who developed the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter is a guy I met on the Italian one that you were going to go on. But
I couldn't go for a variety of reasons, but maybe
I know.
next year.
maybe next year I'll work on that for you because I was with you. Anyway, we don't have to get into that. That dude is. I got to tour the Lamborghini, not the Lamborghini. It was the Maserati MC20 factory line with him. And this is the dude who developed a factory line for the most expensive fighter jet. It's like a 4th gen, 5th gen fighter jet ever made, the F-35, and he was like sort of breaking down why
it doesn't work, or why
no,
it didn't work for a long time.
Yeah, it was a tough development. He would say he would disagree with you. But he's coming back. He's gonna be on the Smokey 600.
Oh, cool.
He also has like probably $100 million worth of cars in his collection.
Oh.
I mean, that dude has.
I like it.
He's got a Lagonda Rapide. He's got a BBI. He's got a Testarossa. We were like going
good
to all
shit.
these museums, and he's like, I got that. I mean, he's good, but he's also got really good taste. You know.
Yeah.
Which is why
people
I put
keep saying every time we do one of these events, someone emails me or they attempt to sign up with a vintage car, and then by the time the event rolls around, something has happened and the vintage car is not there, and they show up with a modern car, or they've like rented an R8 or something. You know, it's everyone. They always say that I'm going to bring the E-Type, or I'm going to bring the Ferrari Boxer, or I'm going to bring a first gen Lotus Esprit or something, and then they show up in like a rented 911 off of Turo, and I'm like, what happened?
There was a dude at Hudson Quattrocento who showed up in a Challenger. He's it's the best thing they had at LaGuardia.
Yeah, and we're not snobby about it. I mean, there's that last event, there's a Ferrari 812 GTS, and there was a Volkswagen GTI. Like, we're not snobs about it at all. It's just it's funny because the people who say they're going to show up with the hardcore vintage car never seem to quite make it. They make it, just not the car.
One of the things I really love about all of these experiences these rallies that we do, and you do a lot more rallies than I do with more variety. You've been doing rallies for a long time. They're awesome people. Like sometimes I get into a room full of car guys, and there's a lot of one-upping. There's some lack of generosity of some kind. I see it at Pebble. Like I do 2 or 3 hours at Pebble, and I want to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, it's pretty low key. Even though there's definitely like nice cars and rich folks, there's not a ton of ego about these types of things. It's pretty chill. I'm into it.
There's a democratizing effect of the fact that everybody's paid a bunch of money to be there. I think
probably.
It all sort of puts them on the same level.
Yeah, and as editorial members of the staff, we kind of have these like authoritative positions that are more so than like, we're not just like the event organizers. It's like we're also kind of like pre-qualified. We're not just like random events people. So that may also establish, and also we know where we're going. We lead the
we have the directions.
But they're very fun. If you want to come drive with us, Mike does all of them along with myself, and I'm now in charge of making all the routes because last year
is that official?
Well, I think it is, because last year I opened my dumb mouth and complained about the quality of one of the routes, and the events people were like, "Guess what your job is now?"
You did do that, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You did do that. I watched it happening. I was like, Matt, what are you doing?
I did. I could have had an easier job, and now instead I have a hard job. But that's okay, because the route to Vine route is fucking awesome, and the Smoky 600 route will be awesome too. You
took your Cayman to pre-run that, right?
The Boxster, yes, I did.
Oh, and the Boxster,
It was superb. Aces. And if a press car of a certain quality was not available, I would have done it. I would have taken it again. I would happily do that drive again in that car. It was fantastic. But when Mac was like, "Would you like a Bentley?" He's like, "I know the handling isn't maybe." And I'm like, Bentley. Yes, give me a Bentley. I will happily spend 4 days in that thing.
Yeah.
That's it's going to be great. What are you what are your
Wait,
you
let
know,
me
your-
just backtrack. Here's how I got into the writing about
we
writing
got
about
away from that
cars.
shit.
When I was at Rolling Stone, Rolling Stone owned Men's Journal, and Eddie Alterman was writing the car column at Men's Journal, and I ended up, I think, editing one of them, and I also was a rabid Road and Track reader as a kid, and I really had an itch. I wanted to be Hunter Thompson. Let's be honest. That's what every kid wanted to be. I wanted to be like a hard-nosed reporter, but I also really wanted to be a writer at Road and Track. And I really wanted to write about cars. And when I got to work on the Men's Journal column, I talked to Eddie a little bit about it, and I ended up sort of going back and forth. And AJ Bain was executive editor of Playboy. He's also he works for me at Road and Track, or I guess I work for him in the same way I work for you. But AJ is one of the great
podcast, so he does work for you.
he's one of the great writers out there, and I did a lot of investigative reporting for Playboy, and Kenny Gross was writing the car column there, and Ken and I started swapping months for the car column there, which is like one of the most ridiculous comparisons of all time.
Yeah, the
Kenny
idea
Gross
that
1
Playboy
month.
needs a car column is really funny.
Oh, right.
Who do you think
Yeah.
were they going on like press launches like as Playboy? Was that a thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I never did a press launch. They just gave me cars. Playboy had. I mean, there was a time when I did I did an Artie Lang profile for Playboy. That was one of the funnest experiences I've had. I mean, Artie was in terrible shape. He was when he was on Howard Stern, and it was right before he stabbed himself 9 times in the stomach to try and commit suicide. And they were when AJ was executive editor over there. They were doing really really cool stories, and including the car columns. All those magazines did car columns.
Eddie became editor of Car and Driver, and now he's in charge of what, Allhurst Autos brands. What's Eddie's title right now?
He's chief brand officer.
Chief brand officer, but he was on the Hudson Quattrocento. Is he coming on Route to Vine? I don't know if he is. Eddie, maybe. I hadn't hung out with him a lot. I'd met him twice, and I thought he was great. And then we hung out a bunch on the Hudson thing last year. And Eddie Alterman rules. He is excellent people.
He is the reason I took this job. Honestly, I mean one of the big reasons.
Great. I really like him a lot. He's very fun to hang out with and very interesting. Has great stories.
Yeah, great stories. He knows everything. And he's a great resource and a good friend. I mean, he and we get into lots of fun. I mean, Dan Pund, who's was the executive editor at Car and Driver, is the executive editor at Road and Track now, and he worked with me, and we've got a good rapport.
I work for Dan more than I actually work for you. I actually have to deliver my stories to him. Yeah. I just CC you on my invoices, really, more than anything else.
This job is 50% inward and 50% outward. I have to spend a lot of time in the business side, like developing the experiences. And I mean, media is complicated, and now we've got digital media is impossible. Podcasts are impossible. I don't know how you have done this and sustained it and grown it into what it is, but media is a tough place to be. Now we've got AI coming in. It's going to replace.
Oh, dude, what the fuck? Did you see that tweet I sent you this morning from Hearst Autos?
Which I don't. Who is that?
I don't know who wrote. I don't even know who actually wrote this tweet. But it was like the Hearst Autos Twitter was like, chat. What is it called? ChatGPT or whatever.
Yeah.
It's time that real writers take ChatGPT seriously or something like. And it's wait a minute. This is the company we work for that pays us to write. What the fuck? What's going on right now?
is ChatGPT has been around publicly for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That was a Harvard Business Review story, I think. But it's sort of, and Microsoft just poured $10 billion into buying a chunk of it. I think I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. But like,
just don't replace me with a goddamn bot, Mike.
No, I can't. Here's the thing:
bot can't do what I can do.
ChatGPT is terrifying on a lot of levels, but writing is not mimicry. All ChatGPT can do is mimic humans and learn and mimic and replicate and learn, and it's like that's all it is. But writing isn't any of these things. Writing is self-hatred.
Yeah.
and it's self-murder.
Yeah.
And it destroys everybody who tries to do it. And the final product of a really good piece is you rebuilding yourself.
That's fucking funny.
And coming alive.
I think it's probably more dangerous for the regurgitative blogs than it is, for us. Like when the Apple Watch came out, people kept asking me oh, is the watch industry dead and whatever. It's like Rolex and Patek and AP, they're fine. There's an artistry to that. But what's dead is the mall watch. The fashion quartz watch, the wrist computer will eat those alive. And I kind of think the same thing about the bots. The bots can scrape the internet and regurgitate some passable blog that's look what the Kardashians are doing this week or whatever. But it's not the same as writing. It's not real.
Well, look at how it works in car blogs, right? Look at a lot of the internet. I'm not going to call anybody out by name, but a lot of the car blogs out there are just. I feel like it's lessening a little bit. But for a while, when I launched the Drive, I felt like car blogs were just. That's all there. It's just scraping and regurgitating.
Yeah.
It's only so many stories in our little niche, right?
I don't want to shit on them too much because I need them to scrape our videos and regurgitate them at the smoking tire, but you're not wrong.
I'm not. Yeah, no, it's right. They're always. But you know what? The bots will cover you.
Yes, the bots will cover you. We should write our own bots.
That's the thing. You could.
Yeah.
You could. I mean, it's all open. So I don't know what the Microsoft things, but there was a degree in car blogging and in news blogging and political journalism as well that's equally as grotesque a mockery of what it means to be human as these chat bots are.
Sure.
And I think ChatGPT is the most extreme version. It's going to get more powerful and more capable, and eventually will do in blogs that cover news.
Yeah.
I really,
but not this, Mike. Not this 6 times a year bit of artistry.
I'm not sure magazines are the future, but a diverse portfolio of components in your business. We've got experiences. We're running rallies. We're doing this. The magazine I view as sort of a halo product that expresses a lifestyle of a super enthusiast. And our website is run by Raf Orlov now, and we've got great writing on it, and we've got timely news. And I sort of believe when I launched the Drive, I really wanted that to be these daily features that were you could not read them, and it's a hard thing to do when you have to invest in actual writing.
Yeah,
it's a hard thing to sustain. It's a hard thing for media companies to keep supporting. Anyway, it's kind of it's life. Whatever. It's,
dude, I hear you, but I really like having something that I wrote, to be delivered in this way that is, permanent. That I can keep around and pass to my friends, and where the photos and the text layout is thoughtful, and where it's packaged alongside a bunch of other writers that I really respect and like working with in a way that a website can't be. I mean, even though it is, I mean, these articles will eventually appear on the website, but when it's not literally, I can't turn the page and then go to the next thing in the same way. And maybe I'm old school and maybe paper is wasteful compared to being just fully digital, but it's just much more satisfying. I don't read books on an e-reader either. I like to have the book in my hand. Something about flipping the literal page is very satisfying. Plus, it's the thing that I used to read. You know, I grew up reading not just magazines, but this magazine. So to be able to have my name on the masthead and my article, you know, right here, it's a very cool thing for me. And the experience of doing it is worth more than the fucking pennies you pay me.
I think what you're describing is similar to what like Corvette is doing, for instance, by going backwards to go forwards to a gigantic 5.5-liter flat plane crank engine. Like, there's only a handful of people, like the people who love it will love it. Like,
well, it was so funny when we were at PCOTY and that Corvette engineer was there, and you know, he basically admitted that they reverse engineered a 458 Special, and I, you know, the car goes by and I go, wow, that sounds like a fucking Ferrari, and the guy just laughs and he goes, yeah, can you believe they had this and stopped doing it? He was they were there, they were already there, they had this, and then they went, you know what, let's not do this anymore.
God, what a car! That's
how dumb is that?
The 458. I think that's one of my favorite ever Ferraris.
Oh yeah,
certainly that I've ever driven. I mean, it was a smaller engine, but it was a natural breathing, big fat fucking V8. Yeah, it sounded amazing.
As fast as a car would ever need to be.
Yeah,
you know, looked great, really tastefully designed, and one of the best cars ever made, hands down, one of the best cars ever made.
Easily.
And the Corvette guy was like, can you believe they had this? And they were like, you know what? Let's move on.
Well, I think it's the pressure of everything had to get faster, right?
Yeah.
So everyone wants something faster.
Yeah.
And now we have the, I guess, the privilege where we can go, all right, we all have 800 horsepower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we actually want?
Yeah.
We want that.
It's true. I was just thinking about that. We were lucky enough to live through going past the 500 horsepower horizon. Like 500 horsepower is now completely commonplace, almost completely commonplace, and now we're in this other world where these numbers are just preposterous and also, frankly, pretty unnecessary. I remember taking I was at Circuit of Catalunya in the Lamborghini, the Huracan STO. I think it was the STO, and doing 160 down that front straight, going, there's no need. First of all, without a cage, it's like a really stupid thing to do. There's no need for a car to go this fast.
Do they make you wear helmets?
Helmets, sure.
So, you know, Lamborghini Europe and Lamborghini US are like completely different countries. Are completely, like, obviously different countries, but they're completely different companies is what I meant to say. Like in the US, a Lamborghini press launch is something that is, it's not that it's litigious, but it's organized in a way that really maximizes, you know, safety and all this kind of stuff. And in Europe, they don't really give a fuck. They're like, it's very, very funny.
Dude, they just gave us these cars and said, here's the Circuit of Catalunya. Perhaps you've watched an F1 race here and you remember some of the turns.
The nuance.
So go have fun. And so Lawrence Ulrich's like, all right. I don't know. Lawrence Ulrich's an amazing writer and a completely bonkers driver. I don't know if has he been on your show?
No, he hasn't, but I have been in a car with him and it was an experience.
I mean, he's a terrifying driver. I did it was actually in our Huracan in Miami for some reason. We were in a torrential downpour going over that long bridge into the first key out of Miami. And we hydroplaned and he spun that thing at 130 miles an hour, 360 degrees over the crest of this bridge. And I was like, Lawrence pulled this fucking car over.
This is not surprising.
Holy shit.
That's not surprising.
I mean, he's way too fast for rain.
But even Lawrence after the end of the first session, he got out of that car and he was just like kind of vibrating. And he was like, I just did 180 miles an hour on the front stretch. I can never do that again.
Yeah.
I will never do that again. It's just too much. It's too insane. It's like, if Lawrence Ulrich has reached the point of insanity, then
we saw it at the SVJ launch in Portugal at Estoril. Front straight, 180 miles an hour, breaking into a 30-mile-an-hour right-hander. It was no helmets, no fucking helmets. They're like, yeah, no, it's okay. Like, what? It was fucking nuts. It was crazy over there. Yeah,
I did the Artura launch out there. Was that Estoril or was that
Was that Portimao?
No, it wasn't Portimao. It was it's like that Frankenstein track that mimics
Ascari?
Yeah, Ascari. Yeah.
Wrong country. That's Spain.
Sorry,
Estoril's Portugal.
Yeah, I'm all over the place. What can I say?
But I finally got to drive Artura too, and it's delightful.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Very, very good.
I love that car, and we took so much shit for reporting the problems they had with the fuel rail.
Yeah, well, they that early launch was just too soon. They didn't have enough time or whatever to get the car right, and by the time the cars came to America, they were good to go.
Yeah,
a year and a half later.
A year and a half later. It took a long time. Maybe they had COVID in the middle of that, and they had a lot of management changes. They had a lot of issues, but I do love that car.
The car was great.
When McLaren makes a great car like the 720, like they make a great car.
Yeah, they don't fuck around.
They can still really pull it off.
And they don't make a goddamn SUV. Like they only make sports cars. So far. I hope that continues. But so far it's like they do one thing, small volume, and they don't do another. They don't have this. The sports cars aren't like a loss leader for their new crossover.
I feel like people might be looking at Lamborghini and what they did with that hideous. What the hell is that thing called?
The Urus.
The Urus, the anus, the Urus. I mean, I'm not a fan of it aesthetically. I think it's sort of an abomination of a car, but it's not the seller that they thought it would be. The Huracan is still their seller.
I'm pretty sure the Urus doubled their volume, dude.
Did they?
I think it did. I think it doubled their sales volume. I think they're maxed out at like 7,500 units a year for the Urus. It doubled their volume. And I don't love how the Urus looks, but I've driven 4 or 5 different ones in a bunch of different situations, and they drive fucking great. They are so fast, and on a racetrack, they're like luxury rally cars. They're really agile. You could smash a curb with them. They rotate on the nose. They have great brakes. Zach looks like he has the numbers.
2021, the Urus outsold the Huracan by twofold. They sold 5,000, or they delivered 5,000 Urus, and they delivered 2,500 Huracan.
Yeah. Doubled their sales volume. Yeah.
God damn it.
I mean, and that's the problem, is that all the other companies, they look at that and they go, it sells. It's not just
every
an idea.
time.
Like,
every time.
Money.
I mean, listen, I love the fact that it helped it. I mean, the SUV helped Porsche so much when it really needed it, but I I'm never gonna be as in love with the Urus as you are.
I'm not in love with it. I wouldn't buy one. I don't look at them twice when they go by on the street, and we're in LA and they go by all the fucking time. I don't give a shit. I'm just respect where it's due. It drives very well. It feels like an Audi, a really fast Audi. It doesn't. There's nothing about it that says to me this is a Lamborghini, but it is very fast. It handles very well. My wife and I put 3,700 miles on one of their press cars and drove it around America for 3 weeks, and it was a beautiful road trip car. Although for $277,000, it didn't have radar cruise control, which is insane.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it was insane. It was insane. That is not standard is ridiculous.
By the way, I just discovered the weirdest thing on. I was driving the Chevy, the Silverado. You know how they have their adaptive cruise control button where you set the distance in 3 different distances, right?
Yeah.
They have a button that is the ACC button, but does not actually adapt your speed to that distance. It's the weirdest thing. It's called
you can't adjust the distance anymore?
It's basically setting an alarm so that if you drive closer than you want to, according to that button, a little thing lights up on your dashboard, but it doesn't actually slow you down. So the first time you use it, if you
it looks like adaptive cruise control, but isn't.
Exactly.
Oh, that's not good.
Uses the same button.
In Ram trucks, I don't know if you've seen this. Ram trucks that are equipped with adaptive cruise control have a button right next to the adaptive cruise control button that is regular cruise control. That's not. I cannot fathom who would want to buy a truck or of any kind of vehicle with adaptive cruise control and then not use the adaptive portion of it.
Yeah.
But like, if you and the button's right next to it, it's like, dude, like you could easily just hit the wrong button.
The only reason I can think that you would want to do that is that adaptive cruise control on a highway leaves you too vulnerable. There's too much of a gap in front of you. So you're a sitting duck for anybody who wants to go around and pass you.
Yeah, but if that's the case, then use your fucking foot. You're not going to be like, I always use regular cruise control instead of this. That's weird.
Exactly.
Look, there's the two buttons. Mike, on the photo.
Yeah.
They're an inch apart. They leave the regular cruise control button there. Isn't that weird?
That's so bizarre.
I mean, it's obvious, like cost cutting, right? Because they just use the same steering wheel. But like, blank that shit out in the middle. Like, what are you doing?
Hey guys, I have to run to the bathroom quickly.
Go ahead. We're gonna take questions from the Patreon, but we'll get started on a question that has nothing to do with you while you're peeing. Zach, make sure to leave the empty chair screen up while he's gone, because that'll be weird. Of course, we got questions from the Patreon for myself and Mike Guy. You want to ask us questions on the live show? You want to watch the live stream? You want to get the show the day it's recorded rather than waiting? You want to get an ad-free listening experience? You want extra podcasting each month? It's patreon.com/the Smoking Tire Podcast. That is where you find it all. And we have a bunch of questions up here. What do we have that's not for Mike? A bunch that Mike should take part in. Keep going down. Anything else specifically not for Mike? Okay. Oh, well, Mike's back. Not back. Okay, we'll just start up. We'll start at the top. Okay. Mike will become involved when he is. Lucas Terradas says, do we think a cottage industry will develop to remove the hybrid systems from cars like the Ferrari 296, Artura, and Acura NSX once they depreciate, or are they too integrated into the vehicle's powertrain and ECUs?
I mean, I bet they're way too integrated. And also,
I would say that
if
too.
the car is depreciated to a very low value, I don't know why removing that system would.
Why would you? What would you gain
right.
from actually removing it?
Yeah, I'm not sure that any of those cars would be made better if you got rid of the hybrid system.
And the Artura, I mean, the motor is sandwiched between the transmission and the motor, or the engine. Yeah. So removing that, now you have this 3-inch
Just put a big spacer there.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, wheel spacer.
A big ass spacer in the middle.
And then you have less torque, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's whether if you like hybrid systems or you don't like hybrid systems, that's fine. You can certainly have that opinion, and there are plenty of cars you can buy that don't have hybrid systems. But I don't see a big advantage to buying a car that starts as a hybrid and then taking it out. In many ways, in these specific examples, the NSX, the Artura, and the 296, the hybrid is pretty invisible if you just put the thing into sport mode where the engine stays on. So it's, you know, I don't see a reason to get rid of it. And plus, if you take the battery out, it may actually make the weight distribution weird and less good.
Yes.
I think it's really complicated. And I think the computers are getting signals from different batteries, from different motors. Like there's probably a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that only like Mitch McKee, who we interviewed, would see.
Yeah.
But if the computer isn't getting the information it expects, then it may go into limp mode.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be worth it.
It's probably
you would
not
have you'd have to rip everything out, just throw an LS in there and a manual transmission.
Yeah.
But it's all pretty integrated.
Yeah. Thomas Wilkes says, my dad keeps all of his old license plates. I like his old 1996 Olympics plates. Would it be dumb to get a vanity plate with the same numbers, but actually use the vintage plate with the valid registration sticker? Will I get pulled over and thrown in the pokey? So you see where he's at, Mike? He's got his dad collects old license plates. Yeah. He's got ones from the 1996 Olympic Games, a commemorative edition plate that was from that's Atlanta, I believe. I believe it was. Yeah. And he wants to get a vanity plate that has the same numbers as the vintage plate and drive around with the vintage plate and put the actual registration stickers on the vintage plate. I think you could get away with that. And especially if you keep the regular plate in the car and everything else is kosher.
I think you could too. I think you might get pulled over. If you get pulled over, they would, and you had the plate with you, they would.
I think like any bureaucratic system, all bureaucratic systems depend on the mood of the person you are dealing with on that day. Yes. Doesn't matter if it's the cops, the DMV, or the fucking military. It's the mood of that person on that day. And if that person sees you acting in good faith and you're not being a shitbag and they're in a good mood, on your way, sir.
I like your perspective on humanity. Also, like, just generally speaking, that's a menschy thing to do with your plate. With your dad's plate. I think you should just do it for that reason.
Yeah, I like the whimsy for sure. I'm into the whimsy, and I think you'd have to be either doing something particularly egregious in your car or get a really dickbag cop to actually care about something like that. If the number matches,
right,
you probably are fine.
Yeah, there's probably a law against it. Like, we're not lawyers, but you'd probably get it because if they run, I don't know. It depends on how the computer system works.
Assuming the dude lives in fucking Georgia, right? It's got to be a Georgia tag. I wouldn't do that shit in California. Like, why not? Fucking go for it. What is the worst possible thing that happens?
You probably get a fix-it ticket and you put the plate on.
They're not going to impound your car. Like, if you just keep the regular plate in the car, you're probably fine. Let's see. Tim says the enthusiast cars that auto journalists rave about have become increasingly unobtainable from buyers due to cost, low production volumes, etc. Do you see that as having an impact on your jobs in automotive media? Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, there's an interesting thing. Like, there aren't that many cars for normal people to choose from that we
totally
cover.
True. Totally true.
But there are plenty of cars out there that like guests who pay $25,000 to go on a rally can buy.
There's more $200,000 cars than ever before. And there are fewer fun $50,000 cars than ever before, and even fewer fun $30,000 cars than ever before. And that is a shame. It's a shame for the young enthusiast or the enthusiast on a budget, and it is a shame for people like Zach and myself who, when we film affordable cars, the videos do much better than if we film supercars or if we film crossovers or SUVs. So it's definitely hurting the smoking tires bottom line for sure.
I think you're absolutely right. I also feel like with PCOTY, we have the Elantra N and the CTR in there and the Nissan Z, and the Z had a tough time during PCOTY.
I broke it.
Yeah, Matt broke it.
I didn't break it. It gave up. It gave up. I didn't break it.
I think one of the rear struts. On the curb or something.
Yeah, the Nissan people basically looked at me like I broke it until I showed them the video that I had of it giving up. And they were like, "Oh, yeah, that's
an interesting car. It's a 400 horsepower car. It's really affordable. It's the 34. What?
39.9 it starts at. 39.9. Yeah.
But it's not a great car. It's
No.
like it's a weird car. It should be a great car, but it's just kind of, it's like a sandcastle of 350, 360, 370, 380Z. It's all these Z's piled on top of each other. It's kind of crude and I don't know. But at the same time,
it's a good place to start a build. But it's it's like, it's just like a BRZ or an 86. It's a good place to sort of start where you can kind of finish it off yourself in whatever direction you want to go. It just starts with 100 extra horsepower.
It's trying to be a lot of different things at once, but without all the money behind it. So now it's a 370 ZTR sort of thing.
But yeah, if you go look at a Road and Track or a Car and Driver from the 90s, it'll be like sports coupe comparison test, and it's like 25 cars. There's the 240SX and the Chevy Beretta and the Ford Probe, and like Ford made a sports car that wasn't the Mustang for 20 years. The Probe was a car, and even Chrysler, like the Plymouth, Sundance RT or whatever, and there were front wheel drive and rear, the Isuzu Impulse, and there was all kinds of stuff, front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, sporty coupes that people just kind of stopped buying, and then the manufacturers just sort of stopped selling.
I will say that the marketplace has moved away from this. We're at a weird spot. Like it's hard to sustain the cars that enthusiasts like us want. There's just not that many customers for it anymore. Ford doesn't even make a car anymore.
Yeah, except for the Mustang.
Except for the Mustang, and then the Mustang, which is not a Mustang.
Yeah, but it's sort of like when the crossovers, when the handling and the acceleration and the braking of the crossover became acceptably sporty to most people, they felt like, oh, I don't need to buy a sporty car because this thing drives pretty sporty by my standards, and so that kind of killed that market. A truck isn't a truck anymore,
Right.
So let's see. James Cowley says, route to Vine is not an accessible option for all due to scheduling, location, price, or otherwise, but would you consider a Road and Track restaurant rating system like Michelin and their stars? It's interesting. There's not a lot of cars to write about anymore, so maybe we need to write our own Michelin guide.
Road and Track and aperitifs and the digest. We should have a digestif. Maybe we should do a cuisine issue.
I mean, a food issue could be fun. There could be. I mean, there is definitely a crossover with chefs and cars. I mean, the Michelin Guide is basically a restaurant rating system designed originally for people to road trip to these places. There are restaurants that are in very cool locations that are worth the drives. I mean, some of these racetrack country clubs. So, Mike, I don't think I told you, I'm going tomorrow to the Concours Club in Miami for one day.
Nice.
I'm driving the Cunningham, Le Mans winning Cunningham C5R for the next issue of the magazine.
Don't say too much about it.
I won't. I'm just saying that I'm driving this car. That's it. I'm driving the car. But no, but the chef at the restaurant at this country club is a fan of the Smoking Tire.
Of course.
And DM'd me and asked, would I like to have some kind of a special meal and whatever. I'm only there for one day, so not really, but I can't really. But I've gotten more emails in the past week about the meal I will be eating at the club than I have about the car, the flights, the photography, like anything else. There's probably been one email for each of those things and 5 or 6 back and forths for whatever the fuck I'm having for lunch while
That's hilarious. Dude, you get to drive a Cunningham on a track.
I know, I'm stoked. I'm super stoked. Yeah, I'm very into that. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm flying out there tomorrow and flying back Sunday. It's just a one-dayer, but it'll be very cool.
Great. That's going to be great.
But yeah, maybe a wild card food issue is not a terrible idea.
It's not it isn't a terrible. I love the idea of road trip issue being culinary based. I mean, we do have we do like to do a travel issue every year. And we're still sort of struggling with the sub theme this year.
It's not a terrible idea. I think road food could be excellent.
Yeah.
Good thought, James. We'll knock that one around.
Yeah.
Tom Rosenbaum wants to know has had a Road&Track subscription for a very long time and is enjoying the format switch so far. What were some of the thought processes that led to the current format? I'm slightly rewording your question. What are some of the thought processes that led to the format change, and how is it working so far for the brand?
Well, that's a really good question. The magazine business is just not a great place for a 10 issues a year format anymore. It just doesn't really have a place. So the thought processes that I had in going to 6 a year was, we're going to make this a beautiful magazine. And a little inside dirt about the magazine world. And this isn't necessarily Hearst magazines, but a lot of other companies, they'll print, say, 500,000 and say our circulation is 500,000. So we've got 500,000 people who are reading this magazine, or 750,000. The reality is that oftentimes they print 500,000 of them and pulp 250,000 of them, because they really only have 250,000 readers. And there's an arbitrage there where it costs less to print and pulp 250,000 than it does to lower your rate base to the actual honest number. What we decided to do, and what I was really enthusiastic about, was to come in and make a magazine that is essentially a coffee table book, and aim at enthusiasts who are real enthusiasts who love beautiful things. We call them internally, I guess, super enthusiasts. And it brings advertisers who are interested in being in that environment. So we got Richard Mille watches, and Rolex and Porsche and JLR has a big commitment.
The back of the magazine right now has got the platinum Daytona on it. It's
exactly,
very affordable.
Exactly. So what we did was we make an honest, it's 150,000 readers. It's an honest number, and it is a higher caliber advertiser. And so it's a cost per page, makes more sense. It just becomes more profitable. A, and B, I think is a better thing to have on your table. I think
the trend was really kind of started with the Road Rat and 000 and those magazines, where we went, okay, people aren't really looking to just get their news from a magazine anymore. What they're really looking for is a paperback coffee table book.
Yes.
That's the model.
Was there also an element, Mike, where, as the internet was in everyone's hand, and I know this started more than a few years ago, but if I'm already looking at my phone, I can pop over to any blog, get the news, and they can do breaking news the moment it comes out. So if a magazine does that story, it's going to be 3 weeks to 2 months old, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So we're sort of going back and telling. It's a storytelling magazine. I view it, a successful Road&Track is a cinematic look at our world, at the car enthusiast world. It should be like these mini films that you're not going to get by just Googling it. And honestly, we can't sell cars in a magazine anymore when our competition is all digital. And the Carvanas, et ceteras of the world are all battling it out for referrals. I mean, Car and Driver works really hard on getting a sales funnel, and that's a big part of their business. Not it's not a big part of our business. We're more of a oriented to the life that enthusiasts lead than we are to selling cars. And so that was the thinking behind this. Plus, I really wanted to make a beautiful magazine, and there's not a lot of opportunities to do that, and I think we do for the most part. I think we've nailed it. So that was the thinking.
I agree, and I think it works. Even if it doesn't sell a lot, I think it works because I like having it on my fucking coffee tables.
Yeah, exactly. But it does. It is from a business perspective. It's a safer, smarter place to be.
And the experiences also make money. Michael Cosgrove says, what is Mike's car ownership history? Do you have any interesting cars? You don't really buy interesting cars, do you?
Well, I've lived in New York City for 27 years. And so I have a 73 Porsche Targa that I've owned for 15 years. And it's probably been drivable for 2 of those years. It's been up in Maine. I have an 87 Chevy pickup, a Custom D. I have a Subaru Outback because I'm a dad. I've owned 3 Miatas. I've owned 2 NAs and an NB, all of which I regret selling. It's hard to live in New York City and to own a lot of cars. When I was a kid, I had a shit ton of cars. They were just kind of flowing through my life. And when I was in college, I worked as a mechanic, and this is another weird little thing. The 2 years I spent at school as a mechanic, at the end of every semester, the rich kids would fly back to California and they would just abandon their cars. And we would...
It's funny, that actually happened. I went to University of Pennsylvania, and that actually did happen.
Oh, yeah. And we would identify which ones people weren't going to come back, and we would... I had an E30 for a while.
They would just leave the car forever. They just
abandon.
They wouldn't
them.
No one actually abandoned it, but I definitely had one friend from California who, upon graduation, sold it to another kid in my fraternity for probably half of the market value, and it was a nearly new BMW 540i 6-speed sport pack. And he sold it to this other kid for like $20,000, and it was like probably a $70,000 car 2 years before. Like, it wasn't abandoned, but like it was. I mean, basically, it was a take this thing from me. You know, it was crazy.
Yeah. I got an
E30. You've had some shit. Yeah, you've had some.
I got an E30 out of that. Most of the cars that I went through were
junkers from the body shop next door.
Junkers from the body shop. Yeah. You know, I had a lot of that.
Jump around a little bit. Chris Navio liked Mike's article on the Artura. Would you take an Artura over a Ferrari 296? I would.
Yeah. I probably would. All things being equal, absolutely.
HUD says, I just got my first sporty-ish car, a 2000 Legacy GT wagon. Matt, I had one of those. I had a 98 Legacy GT wagon.
I had a 2004 Legacy GT wagon manual.
Great cars. Oh, yours was the turbo.
It was awesome.
Mine was the 2.5. It was not the turbo. They didn't get turbos until after 2000. Did I modify it at all? Well, this is pretty shameful.
Well, it also pairs really well with the rest of HUD's question of, do you have any tasteful modification advice?
So there's probably more to do that you could do now with one of those. When I bought my car, I wanted to modify it, but before the WRX came to America, there wasn't anything for Subarus. They were naturally aspirated. They were school teachers' cars. It wasn't until the WRX, and its turbocharged engine came to America that all of a sudden people started modifying them. There was nothing you could do, and the things that I did to mine were terrible. I got a muffler literally from AutoZone. And it was like, I don't know what brand it was, maybe Borla or something, and put the Borla muffler on. I got a ski rack. I had, the ski rack look was very big then with like the Volkswagen crowd. So I did the ski rack with that little arrow lip thing on the front of it.
Yeah, the tool thing. Yeah.
Yes, the Thule rack. Yeah, I did. Yeah. I did because my friends had muscle cars and this was all I knew. I put a Hurst T-handle shifter on the 5-speed shifter, which was kind of a weird mixture, and it wasn't as dorky as it sounds, but it was metal. And in the summer, you'd park the car, and it was like 1,000 degrees. It would sear your hand. So I was so white, and I was the whitest kid ever. I was on the golf team. I would take the head cover from my putter and put it over the fucking T-handle so it wouldn't get hot in the summer. And then the last bit, this is not good. Street glow. I had street glow undercarriage knee. This was 2 years before the Fast and the Furious came out. So it wasn't like this was cool, but it wasn't like as corny as it became once the Fast and the Furious came out. And that car was gone by the time that movie came out. So do I have any tasteful suggestions for you, HUD? Fuck no, I don't. I don't have any. But I have a lot of tasteless suggestions. I don't know what you'd do to one of those things, but they were very nice cars. And if you had the turbo one like Mike had, that's the shit. Those were the jam.
That was a great car. Got stolen in Park Slope, unfortunately.
Of course, someone else thought it was great, too.
I know. It was a real tragedy.
Let's see. Here's a good one. Philip LaFranca. Matt, what's the one thing you'd say to Mike that you'd like to see improved about Road&Track this year? My salary?
Okay. Aside from that.
I'd like more money. I'd like to see one thing improved. Yeah. I was traveling a lot last month and couldn't make as many of the weekly Zoom calls as I would like, and literally nobody told me what the theme of next month's issue was until it was way too late. So I would like to see an email that's just like, hey guys, here's what the theme is in case you can't make the call. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I found out about it.
Doing now?
Yeah, I found out about it so fucking late, dude. I didn't know what it was at all.
All right, well, that's my bad, and I will do.
I don't even think it's your job, but I think that if that discussion happens on the Zoom call, there should be some kind of email communication as well.
That's fair.
Or a text,
actually,
maybe.
It's a good question. What is there anything else? Aside from Dan Punn's poor communication skills,
that I'd like to see?
Yeah.
No, I like the magazine a lot. I'm a big fan of it. I think we could lean even more into the coffee table book, if we went to the real heavy stock paper and stuff like that. But like, I don't know what the finances are of that. I don't know if it makes any sense at all.
That's a big part of it, because then you're paying. It's a thing called PPI. It's postage, printing, distribution, PPDI, and ink. We may literally have to pay for more ink and have to pay for the weight.
That's why I'm not that job.
Yeah, the weight of the postage is it's a big deal. It was a big fight for me to get to 180 pages. It was a real battle inside Hearst. This one's a little bit shorter, but January issues are always a little shorter.
I mean, it's cool. I think the direction of the book is great, and I'm always happy when I see my pieces, and I'm happy to read other people's. So like, I don't have a lot of criticisms, honestly. I think it's the direction is great. Just send an email for the next theme ahead of time.
Or you could call,
and I missed the calls because I was working for you.
That's true.
I was on the road.
God, you got
it's not
way
like
out
I was
of
on
this.
vacation over here.
The hardest working man in show business is
No,
Matt Farah.
no, that's absolutely untrue. But
By the way,
do something.
Can I just jump in here? What happened to Jay Leno today?
Oh, the motorcycle accident?
Yeah.
Dude,
is he all right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's okay. He broke
fine.
a couple ribs, kneecaps, and I think his arm.
He literally got clotheslined. Like, he apparently rode his motorcycle into the driveway of some business that had a chain across it. And the chain didn't have any flags or anything on it, and he didn't see it, and it fucking clotheslined him off a bike.
God.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, when you're 70, that's gnarly.
When you're any age, that's gnarly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big problem with snowmobiles and barbed wire fences.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
That too.
Yeah. Anyway.
But we got a couple more. Hang on. You got a few minutes? You good?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
of course,
cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that one's a lot of words. Can we institute a maximum? I know I wanted people to be specific, but like if you write 100 words, I can't just read that. Okay. Scott Yarnell said, I have a Fiesta ST. I find I'm driving it less and less because it's loud, bumpy, and not comfortable for longer rides. Have you had any similar experience with any of the cars that you own? And what cars offer this level of fun with better comfort, room for a bag or two on a road trip? And what could I do to my Fiesta to make it a more pleasant car to drive in? All the mods I seem to do make the car louder or ride more harsh. This is going to be, you're not going to like this, Scott. Put it back to fucking stock. Put the car 100% back to stock, and I guarantee you go, and it's like that. Little set of Michelin Pilot Super Sports, Pilot Sport 4Ss with 100% back to stock, and that car will
the Fiesta ST rode pretty good stock.
Yes, it
was
did.
like a nice floaty. It had some motion to it.
Yes.
What a great car
best.
right off the lot.
Oh, they
I
were
love
so
that
good.
car.
Yeah, they were
Did
so
you,
good.
You had the Focus right off.
I had a Fiesta ST, and then I had a Focus RS.
Yeah.
And the Focus RS I thought would be as fun as the Fiesta ST, but a little bigger, but it wasn't. It was not the car I wanted it to be. I didn't like it that much.
It was a pretty brutish car.
It beat the shit out of me. It beat
Yeah,
me
it's a
up
British
so
car.
bad. It was fast, but it beat me up so bad. And the Fiesta was great. But other cars that are like really actually pretty refined and comfortable for weekend cars, I mean, they're pricey now, but like every time I drive a stock air-cooled 911, like from the 80s, I'm like, wow, what a refined, like a comfortable, I could do 2,000 miles in this, no problem. Corvettes, if they're in good condition, are very comfortable and refined and not too aggressive and brutish. But man, anything that's stock, it's got to be stock.
Bring it back to stock.
Yeah.
That's a really good advice.
I had this John Cooper Works Mini, and I had all these modifications to it. And when I moved to California, I wanted to sell it because I needed the money for the smoking tire. And I was sharing a Volvo with my girlfriend, and I was going to sell the Mini and buy a motorcycle, which I did. I ended up doing. But the Mini was like modded. It had like, I took the back seat out, and it was like, for weight. Which was retarded, and it had a header on it, and it had all this stuff. And to sell it, I put it back to stock. And the first time I drove it, after I put it back to stock, I went, oh. I was like, this is actually kind of a luxury car, and I kind of fucked it up. And I almost didn't want to sell it afterwards. It was so nice.
The impulse is always right. I like the impulse of wanting to do it, but usually the what ends up happening is wrong.
Yeah. Sean Carl wants to know, long story short, what sports car or supercar from any point in history would you like to see an off-road version? Question inspired by my drive of the 911 Dakar.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful machine.
I'll tell you all about it off the air, as well as when I submit my article to you soon. But what would you like to see? I'd like to see a 1980s Aston Martin Vantage as an with over fenders and off-road tires. 80s one. The one that looked like it was kind of inspired by the Mustang look.
That'd be tough.
That would be cool.
That's one of my favorite. The V8.
Yeah, so good, so pretty. They do not drive well at all, but they look fucking great. That or a
so beautiful.
Lagonda, dude. Imagine a Lagonda Safari. That would be sick.
How about a three? How about a 328 Safari? Everybody does that
328.
Already, right?
You know, you'd have to look to the Michelotto rally cars from the '80s. A 308 made a great rally car. Real cool.
I'll go Ferrari FF, but disable the front wheel drive part of it, so it's only rear wheel drive.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, because the interaction's kind of weird, but I think it'd be just a really good time, and you got that. You could probably store a tire in the hatch. I think it'd be exciting.
Yeah.
Sure. Jake said, I've owned my 2023 BRZ for a few months, and it's got me thinking. This is my starter sports car. Can you think of what cars from your early 20s would have been comparable as starter sports cars? My Mustang was. I had a 94 Mustang that I modified with my friends, and that was it. Used a couple, it was a few years old, and suspension, some engine tuning, and real fucking loud, cammed out Cobra R wheels. That was it.
I keep coming back to my Celica GT. I had an 81 Celica GT with the 5-speed. And that car was fucking great. So I think it was 2.2 liter.
Let's see. Derek Yagan. I'm gonna go with your first question. You got two here. He says I can choose one. Best press launch you've ever been on.
Oh man, that's a tough one. There's so many. You want to say one of the Jeff Day launches from with Mercedes? I did a press launch. The problem is I confuse the launch with the car itself. I was on a press launch with Mercedes. I forget what it was. It might have been an S-Class. They put a lot of money into the S-Classes back in the day. This is probably 10 years ago. We got stuck in a traffic jam in Nice, and they just the head of communications, Mercedes-Benz USA, was famously would drop 25 grand on wine for lunch without thinking twice. He got 3 helicopters to fly in because the traffic into Monte Carlo was so intense. So we ended up detouring to the airport in Nice, and then taking the choppers into Monte Carlo. I gotta say that was pretty good. I did do
anyone who was working from 2000 to 2010 has a Jeff Day Mercedes story.
I wasn't, and I recognize that name. That's how many stories I've heard or just watched.
That guy, there should be a book about this fucking guy's events. It was crazy.
He was Princess Diana's publicist before he came to Mercedes.
Get the fuck out of here. No shit.
Yeah, he worked with Diana, he was a publicist for her.
Wow, that's crazy.
But he's still around. He's a great guy, you know. I was on the press launch in Montenegro with Stuart Shore and doing a Jag launch, and we were staying at one of Tito's old palaces in Montenegro. But we couldn't really drive anywhere because Montenegro hadn't been fully demined. This is 2015 or 17. It's when
a press launch somewhere very luxurious that you can't drive. It's like
because it was the landmines from the war. So we were having a dinner one night, and Prince died, and everybody got this thing at on their phones. Oh my God, fucking Prince died. So we all talked about it for a little bit, and Stuart and I are old friends. We've been to a lot of shows together, and he's a big music fan. And we ended up going down into the village. This went across the moat into the village from Tito's palace to the village, and the village had set up these gigantic speakers, and it turned into an all-night Prince dance party
in Montenegro.
Until dawn in Montenegro. Crazy. It was really kind of amazing.
Yeah, that's wild. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of great press launches out there.
Stuart Shore was responsible for one of my top. When Range Rover in 2013 rented Amangiri for a week for the Range Rover press launch. That was fucking crazy.
Dude.
That was crazy. This 911 Dakar that we just did in Morocco, where they built a hotel in the middle of the sand dunes, was incredibly crazy. Yeah, I mean, those two are the instant standouts, and the other end of it, Lotus for the Evora GT had rented like a Holiday Inn next to a racetrack and gave us like a sandwich, but it was like 4 hours of track time.
Yeah,
you know, so there's that end too. Any press, like I need to get seat time. Like even at like the Almangiri one was crazy, but like tons of seat time. The Dakar, it was a wild thing. The photos look crazy. It took fucking 2 days to get out there, but tons of seat time. Like so that's got to be job one. And I've stayed at some amazing hotels and some exotic places, and I flew all the way here for like 25 minutes of seat time. Like, what the fuck? Like, and it's not even enjoyable. It leaves you a sour taste in your mouth. That
sometimes happens. I flew to Brazil to take Ferrari, California from Sao Paulo to Rio. And it was just me. And remember Matteo Sardi?
Yeah.
Yeah, Matteo was there. And we were just going to drive this Ferrari, California up to Rio. But when we were leaving Sao Paulo, we got lost. He was navigating. He was like holding the map upside down. He's a lovely guy, but a total incompetent. And we ended up in the part of town where you die. And I'm driving this bright red Ferrari, California, top down. And Mateo's like, I do not know exactly where we are going. And suddenly there's these two motorcycle cops with their lights flashing. And the guy just turns to me. He's like, follow me and don't slow down. We're going 80 miles an hour out of this neighborhood through lights, through everything. And about 10 minutes later, they pull over right by the highway. And
you are safe now.
The guy comes to me and said, you should have been killed.
Wow.
You should have been. Not you
should
could
have been killed.
You should have been. In a just world, you wouldn't have made it out of here.
The gangsters are asleep today. I don't know why. You are very lucky. Jeez, man.
We were slowly wandering through one of those dangerous neighborhoods in the world.
That's
in a
so
bright
funny.
red Ferrari. Yeah.
You should have been.
All the
killed.
criminals are like, this has to be bait. There's no way. These guys must be CIA.
Yeah,
should have been, sir? Do you mean could have been? No, I don't.
No, you should have been killed.
Prashant says, I'm having an irrational desire for a Saab 900 Turbo. Do they drive well or just drive well for what they are? It's been a while, but I mean, they drove well when they were new. When they were being made, they were cool, but it's been a long time, and I haven't driven one recently.
It's a heavy car that doesn't turn very well. But they're a blast.
It's a grand touring front wheel drive car, in my opinion. It's very comfortable, floats a little bit, but it depends on what your definition of drive well is.
Yeah, they're quirky, and if you rolled up in one, I'd be like, yeah, okay, you're cool. But I don't think objectively by today's standards they're great driving cars. Kurt Bergstedt says the new C9 Corvette announcement, it says it seems to be a front engine model. Has GM announced a front engine Corvette? I can't possibly imagine they're ever going back to that.
They are not going back to that.
There is, I think, zero chance of a front engine Corvette unless they're going to release another car. You know, if it's a bigger brand, you know, if they're like Ford, you know, the Mustang brand is now extended to a crossover. If there's a Corvette branded sedan or crossover, but this story on Jalopnik from Monday says C9 Corvette mid-engine small block.
I don't buy it.
Mid-engine, not front.
Oh, mid-engine. Yeah.
I don't think front engine's happening. I don't think that one's happening, Kurt. Let's go.
I will say I'm interested to see with the C9. I talked to Taj about the C8 a little bit, and because they won Performance Car of the Year, obviously, and he's really digging deep into the styling of the next evolution of this car because he feels like the styling is just too extreme.
Angular and whatever.
Too many weird angles. It's just like he called it. I think he called it a post. It's in its post adolescence.
Sure. Remember when we had the Z06 Performance Car of the Year, and we were off on the side of the road lining up to do photos, and that other group came by that was like a rental car driving experience group. And I really appreciated the Z06 when the guy rolled up in the base Corvette next to us. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, I see what they've done here to get to the Z06 now, and those were the right decisions. Maybe a few more curves, but I think you're right. Let's see. Okay, our last show we talked about some cars that were going to be imported, and they weren't very good. But the question is, what is your favorite lovable piece of irredeemable garbage? A terrible car that you love, that is lovable but irredeemable garbage. I mean, the DeLorean, I think, is pretty much irredeemable garbage, but it is incredibly charming in its own way.
Impossible to drive.
They're not good. I owned one. They're not good, but but it is hard to ignore the charm and the optimism of that early '80s, design, and the stainless steel and all that kind of stuff, and the Giugiaro.
I mean, would you put the Countach in there?
No, the Countach is not irredeemable garbage.
All right, that's all right.
The Countach was the fastest car in the world for like 8 years.
That's fair.
It's not irredeemable garbage.
All right. That's fair.
I think most '60s muscle cars. Musto was downstairs this morning. We were talking like when they were new, in their best condition, they mostly drive like shit. Yeah. Objectively, they drive like shit, especially compared to anything that's maybe 30 years newer.
I mean, stock Mustangs in the '60s did not drive well.
Yeah.
Nothing did.
No, I mean, you close the door, you hear 4 different sounds. They don't turn, they don't stop. There's a lot of things wrong with them.
Yeah.
All right. I think that is our show. Thanks, Mike. I'll see you in what, 3 weeks, right? February 14th in San Francisco for Route to Vine.
You and I can have a Valentine's Day dinner.
Oh shit! Yeah, we can, and we will. Yeah. That's Valentine's Day, huh? Oh, I better plan around that for my wife.
Yeah, you gotta plan around that.
I better start thinking about that one right now.
I am so happy I finally got to be on this show, and I appreciate it.
No, dude, thanks for making the time. You're actually a lot busier than you look right now. You right now look like someone with a lot of free time, and that's not actually true.
No, I'm pretty busy. I'm pretty slammed. I have a lot of work after this.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're doing the things about the weight of the ink and the paper and all that shit. Like, people are like, "What is?" I say, "Oh, I'm editor at large at Road&Track," and they go, "What the fuck is that?" And I go, "It's the top of the fun food chain."
The
level of fun goes down as you go higher up the masthead.
When we look at what stories are we gonna who gets to do what? Matt, you generally gets to do the funnest stories.
I do. Me and Travis are tied for funnest stories, I think.
Yeah, Travis just did a really good one.
He did. He drove
about it.
Well, the one that went on the website today, Sam Posey's Corvette. Something else.
Not Sam's. No, something down in Coda.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I won't blow it up. But get the new issue of Road&Track. It's on newsstands right now. I'm trying to find my goddamn article. Where is it? I have of course it is. My story about Killer Mike. I went to Atlanta. There it is. I went to Atlanta to talk to Killer Mike about his cars and his community work, and he was the coolest. If he gave me an hour of his time, I would have said thank you, but he gave me 6 hours. And when I said I had to leave and go to the airport, he was like, "Oh, you leaving? I was going to take you to Magic City." And I was like, "Motherfucker."
Change that flight. Change your flight.
I was like, "Tell me that shit beforehand, Mike. I want to go to Magic City with you."
What a talented guy that guy is.
He was awesome. He was so fucking cool. And there's a lot of other great stories. The Hunter Thompson story in this magazine is insane. Performance Car of the Year is great. The stuff about the guy who tunes the car stereos. Elliot Shiner. Cool. That's really cool. And of course,
I say the Miles Davis piece. I had Joe Levy write, and Joe Levy is one of the greatest music writers on the planet. And, and Miles was as we say in the story, he's secretly had some of the best taste in cars
Yeah, he bought good shit. He bought
Really
good shit,
good stuff.
and he drove it all over the East Coast, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
He would drive himself to gigs in Boston, even though he lived in New York, and that's pretty cool.
The 275 up to Boston.
Yeah, that's pretty G. I like it.
Yeah.
And of course, pull up, Zach, experiences.roadandtrack.com. You can come drive with Mike and I. Route to Vine in 2 weeks is sold out, but June 6th to 9th, we've got the Smoky 600, which is going to be down in the Great Smoky Mountains. We've got bourbon tasting. We've got track time, the Corvette Museum. Really, really cool hotels, great food. And of course, Tail of the Dragon. And then October 17th, 2023 is going to be the Hudson Quattrocento. That's going to be Hudson Valley, New York. It's going to be fantastic restaurants. It's going to be Lime Rock. It's going to be really, really good. I really enjoyed the HQ 400 last year, and it's going to be a lot of fun again this year. Yep. And why is Quail not on this website right now? Isn't Quail happening too?
Quail is happening. I don't know.
Oh, there's also an event we're driving from Los Angeles to the Quail for Car Week, and for some reason it is not showing on the Experiences website.
We're also doing a Goodwood event and a Italian Grand Prix event.
I need to go to Goodwood, Mike. I think you should send me on the Goodwood one, because everyone's been saying I need to go, and I
You
still
never been
haven't
to Goodwood?
No, I need to go.
All right,
I need to go. I need to drive up the hill.
Yeah.
This is.
That's a good idea. We should put you in a McMurtry and get you up that hill.
Or like the Gordon Murray Automotive T50.
Oh,
that
that's
would be
really
the
good
jam.
one.
Yeah.
It hasn't been up the hill yet.
It hasn't? I thought
so.
Oh no, he
Did it
took it out at Revival, right? He was running some laps at Revival, maybe not up the hill though. The McMurtry looks fucking crazy, but I don't think I'm gonna fit in that thing. I don't fit in 2/3 scale cars. So good.
Yeah. The thing is, it's a weird car.
All right, follow Mike on all the social medias, Mr. Mike Guy. He's and of course get your Road and Tracks over here. Thanks for your time, Muddy. I'll see you in 3 weeks.
Good to see you.
That's our show. We will be back on Monday with Doug DeMuro. Will be in studio. He'll be joining us with some news. He has some news to share. And then, of course, next week on Wednesday, we've got Peter Lenkov, who was the writer of Demolition Man. And
is this it's not your favorite movie, but it's got to be your
It's
third?
one of my favorite movies of all time. I have a Demolition Man themed bathroom. This San Angeles license plate is a real Demolition Man movie prop that I just bought at a prop store auction, and I cannot wait to have the writer for Demolition Man in studio.
I don't know if I'm still on the air, but
you are.
Did you say you have a Demolition Man themed bathroom?
Yes, at my house.
Jesus Christ.
It's got 3 seashells on a special shelf. It's got multiple screen-used Demolition Man props and things hanging on the wall. It's got the Blockbuster Demolition Man DVD. It's got the Demolition Man comic book. Vinny just bought me an uncut sheet of Demolition Man trading cards. It's like an enormous. It's a poster, but it's supposed to be cut in trading cards. But I'm gonna have that framed, and now I've got this San Angeles license plate, which was screen used on one of the police cars in the movie.
Amazing. All right, I gotta run.
Okay,
later,
bye,
guys.
Mike. See you later. That's our show, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye.